Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. This I think will be the final part of the Atari XE130 repair. I know it's been a while since I've done a video. I've been pretty busy and this Atari has proved to be a real pain in the neck, but I think I've finally conquered the issues that the machine had, and I think it might, fingers crossed, be working okay. Let's have a little recap about what I've done. So first thing, ignore all this. First thing I did was I removed all the RAM, placed sockets on the motherboard so I could change the original RAM that was fitted, which was Hitachi RAM. It's now got, I think it's some more Hitachi RAM actually, but it's a slightly later revision with a slightly faster refresh time. Not that that matters. But it has all brand new old stock RAM. The first bank here is 64, the second bank here is another 64, giving the machine 128K. The chip that should live in here is the MMU, or in Atari terms, the eMMU, and that controls the RAM banking or RAM switching method that Atari used to let the 6502 use more than 64K, and the 128K was then bank switched. The second chip that is missing in action is the operating system. Now, the reason the operating system was removed was that even though I changed the RAM and the machine worked 5 times out of every 10 as opposed to 1 time out of every 10 when the RAM was bad, it still wouldn't run reliably, it wouldn't boot reliably, it would often boot into the RAM test. In fact, it still does for no obvious reason, and it would crash, it would freeze, it would reboot, it would lock the screen up and give out a horrible screeching sound. So a very nice chap called Shoestring from Atari Age has created a 64K RAM test which works much better than the built-in RAM test which is in the ROM that Atari created. Now, what Shoestring has done, you need to burn it onto your own ROM, of course, which I did. If you download it from Shoestring on atariage.com, it will test the graphics, the audio, the RAM, and various other features of the machine. What it won't do is test the second bank of RAM, so what you need to do is test the first bank, make sure it works okay, pop that bank into there, take that bank, put it in there, and rerun the test, and that will test all your memory chips, which should give you 128K. If you run the Atari test, which is built into ROM, it will only test 64K. In fact, it won't even test that, but it's a waste of time using the Atari test anyway. So you run Shoestring's ROM test. If you have issues, if you can do that, you will need to socket the ROM. I did the eMMU because I had a hunch it was faulty. It wasn't, so it was a waste of time. But you will need to socket the ROM to run Shoestring's test. If you don't want to run that, you can run a memory test called, I think it's Radon. I don't think it's Radeon, but I think it's Radon or Radon. It's a memory test. It's available in various places. It's on Atari Age as well. It's an ATR file, I think, so it can be loaded in from an SD drive like this one. We'll talk about that later. And that will test all your RAM. It will test 128K. So I changed the RAM. The RAM's all okay, I think. I changed the ROM with the test ROM, and it says everything is okay. But software still crashed. I still had issues. Some things would load, some things won't load. Now, this is an historical problem that Atari themselves created. When Atari released the Atari 800 in the late 1970s, it was called the Atari 800. You had the 400 and the 800. Atari, in their wisdom, then released the Atari 600 and 800 XL. And then to top it all, they released the Atari 65 and the Atari 130 XE and various versions therein. Some European models are named different, some American models are named differently as well, but they're all pretty much the same thing. The new ROMs that Atari fitted into the XL and the XE were different from the Atari 800, and some software won't run because of that. The original Atari 800 didn't have Atari Basic built into ROM, so programs didn't expect to see Basic and had access to full 48K. The Atari XL and XE, and variants thereof, have Atari Basic built into ROM. There, lives there, and that creates issues with software that thinks it doesn't have Basic, it finds Basic, and it will crash or create problems, graphic glitches, sound problems, blah blah blah. So software is an issue on an Atari 800 or an XL or an XE or whatever the game system was called, GS, whatever it was. So you have to be careful. You can reboot the machine with your finger held on Option, and that will disable Basic, which will mean it's kind of an original Atari 800, but not really, because the ROM is different, and the differences in the ROM can also cause software to stop working. So it's a little bit of a minefield. If you have a fully working Atari, it's a bit of a minefield. If you have a slightly flaky Atari 800, then it's even more of a minefield. If you're new to the Atari 800 like I am, I used one briefly in about 1985, maybe 86. That was the last time I ever used one. So I've forgotten what little bit I did know. So I'm trying to run software from 1982 and 1983, and it won't work. Now the reason being, I'm trying to run it on an XE. It is still misbehaving, playing up, it crashes occasionally. It freezes after about an hour of use. Some programs have little graphical errors and glitches, don't know why. So after lots of umming and ahhing, I've decided that it's either another chip that's at fault, whether it be, I don't know, a buffer, whether it be CPU fault, whether it be antic, something else, perhaps the crystal's playing, who knows. So I've decided to do a blanket recap of this machine. I've changed the capacitors, the various capacitors. Most of them are hidden around here. So I've changed the capacitors, so they're all new. I've just done that today. I've also fitted Lotharic, I think it's pronounced, Poland, from Poland. It's the ultimate 1 megabyte upgrade. And what this gives you is, obviously, 1 megabyte of RAM. I'm unsure whether it needs the second 64K. I think it just needs 64K. But anyway, left that in there. It gives you 1 megabyte of RAM. It gives you various ROM options to swap in and out. So you can use XL ROM, you can use the XE ROM, you can use fast ROM, which has super fast loading. And I think QDOS is the other one. You can change these if you don't like. A clock under there, a little battery if you can see it, and a few other features that I need to go into. So, does it work? Well, the question is, yes, I think it does. I think it's probably finished now. Ish, I think. What it does now that it didn't do before is what I've tried to do is load a few games in today and a few demos and a few programs which didn't work prior to fitting the Ultimate, prior to recapping, and they now load. So all I can deduce from that is that I think it's working. Is it working? I'm not sure, but I think it is. So along the way I've bought one or two other little things to play with. One of the things I've bought is a DRAM tester, and this is officially a 4164 DRAM tester for a Commodore 64 and his ZX Spectrum, so I will get plenty of use out of this. But what it does is you pop the RAM in, flip the switch, and you get you press the button you get a tick or a cross. Quite simple. Bright LED will shine, either red or green. Now what I thought was the D4164 is a similar, well, it's the same pinout as lots of variations of DRAM. So I kind of hoped it would work with the Atari RAM. And I think it does, in so much as it will tell me if I've got a dead chip or not. And I did have a dead chip. I don't know which one it was. Let's say it was the first one in bank 1. Try that chip, red cross, no good. So I took that out, replaced it, and the machine showed 64K, seemed to work. Then I had other issues as well, so I was never quite sure whether it was the RAM or not. But that's quite an interesting tool to have. It's available on eBay. It's PCB designed by Stephen Vickers, 2020. I don't know how much it was, 16, 17, 18 pounds. Very good, seems to work well. I will get more use of this with Spectrums and Commodore 64s, I expect. But an interesting tool nonetheless. Another thing I bought along the way was an Uno cartridge. And the Uno cartridge is a 3D printed case, a little PCB in there with an, well, I was going to say an SD card, but it's a mini SD card, a TF card. And you can copy your own files on there and it will load cartridges. It will reload some ATR and some disk images as well. But this is quite interesting in so much as you use the arrow keys, it boots up with a nice blue menu. We'll perhaps have a look later. Works well, it's fast, it's quite good. It does load some things that the SD Max doesn't load. Don't know why, but nothing is, nothing's perfect in life, is it? The SD Max is another open source software loading device. It emulates an Atari disk drive. This will emulate an Atari cartridge. So between them, you should be able to get most things working. Now what the Ultimate 1MB can do is it can sideload cartridges, disk images and things, and it allows you to search directives from a FAT32 card if you have a sideload cartridge, which is a little bit like that. I don't have one yet, I might get one, not sure. But what I'm going to do now is I just wanted to show you the internals of the machine. I've cleaned it about a bit, I've recapped the board, I've changed the RAM. Now these are all common faults that all Atari 800s, XEs, GS, whatever they are. They will all suffer from leaking caps. They will all suffer from bad RAM. So if you have a machine with graphical glitches, possible power issues, all these can point to RAM issues or capacitor issues. I would say if I was buying one of these machines for anyone, recap the board before you do anything. Then run a RAM test, see if the RAM works. The radon test, whatever it was, works well, and it will detect 128K. It will actually detect 512K, I think it is, or 576, not sure which. It won't detect the full 1MB. The Ultimate 1MB will give you 1088K. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bolt this all back together, put the case back on. I have already put a new membrane on there, and I will probably do a stream in a little while. We'll play a few games, have a chat, and perhaps I'll see you over there. So that's it from me. Thank you very much. Have a very good Saturday evening. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.